Apologies. Thank you all for being here. Andrew, thank you, John. We are quorum. Any apologies? I have an apology from Councillor Redrup, who can't be here today. Any others? It's how committees work, Andrew. Minutes, to confirm as true the minutes, page 5 and 8. Any comments? Are we happy to accept them as a true representation of our previous meeting? You were there, Andrew. You weren't, John, were you? Are we happy to? Yeah, I'm happy to agree that. Yeah. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? There being none. Thank you. Public question time.
We've had no questions.
You'll soon be a member of the public, Louise, won't you? When is that, by the way? Week. You're starting next week. Along, won't you, when you're not? Well, from the Harbour Committee then, Louise, because we'll see you else. No, but listen, thank you for turning up to this meeting and at least helping the residents on this island through your work and through the publication. What you do is getting that information out. It has been appreciated, and thank you for that. Sincerely, that's not a joke there. And we'll be up to the cafe, so. Our audit reports undertaken September last year in 2023. David, would you like to do that? Newport Harbour, and then we'll do Ventnor after. It's pages 9 to 46 in our papers. Thank you, David.
As you know, my appearance is a little bit later than you would expect, having, when from the timing I actually did the audits. This was due to a bit of a hiccup about getting it onto the agenda last time, so a little bit out of date now. You should have. Well, I know you have got the papers for both the Newport and the Ventnor reports. What I intend to do, if you're happy, is for me to look at the Ventnor report and just look at the executive summary and just explain to you any of those things that are there that you might like to draw your attention to, and then clearly when you read sort of
we're doing Ventnor first and then we're doing Newport. Is that what you're suggesting?
I was going to suggest doing Newport first and then Ventnor, but I'll do it either way around. I couldn't. It completely doesn't matter at all for me.
It's fine, David.
Okay.
You're happy with that, Andrew? Yeah. We're fine with that.
Okay, so right. Taking forward the make sure I've got the right one in front of me. The Newport one first. As you can see, that going down those line by line, from my previous audit, most of my recommendations have been taken forward. And I think the thing to say is that since I've been involved with the port, one of the many things that have improved is just the state of the estate. The estate now is, I mean, again, as I walked around this morning, is beautifully clear and things compared with many ports, and that's that's good. And again, getting the manning right, so you've got the right people in the right places and doing the things. So that's going well. The next one is really aimed at you, to be honest with you, is that some of you haven't done the duty holder training yet. Now, I don't know, I haven't got the list of who hasn't. I don't think if Alex does, or but there are two. From when I did the audit, there were two of the Harbour board that haven't done the training. So really, I think we ought to get that into the system. I can either do it online or come over, whichever you prefer. It doesn't, whichever is the most convenient. So I think we ought to put that into the agenda. I rather mistakenly thought, I was corrected earlier on, I thought your elections were this year, but it's next year, isn't it? So it is worth doing it again.
Well, that's noted. We'll minute that, and also we'll take care of that in due course of our
Lovely, thank you very much.
processes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I can do it in about 2 hours. I just basically touch the points and they're salient to you. I'm not going to talk about tugs and pilotage and that sort of thing. So I can bring that, but it's just so you understand what we're getting on and getting on with. Right, the next line is another tick, which is good, is that since I started this, I changed over and I now talk to the harbour master and currently now Lawrence once a month. And we have I wouldn't call it totally informal, but I run through an agenda and see how we're getting on with all the progress. And it works very well as a physical talk rather than just ping-ponging minutes and things backwards and forwards. So I think that means, I hope that means that I know much more about what's going on here than I used to, and probably I know more than they want me to know, probably. But anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I think the next thing is this thing about this marine safety management plan. I think I should say that the Port Marine Safety Code changed or is in the throes of changing at present. Whether the new code is in force or not is something that every port in the country isn't quite sure of because the MCA haven't said so, but they're sort of pretending that it is. But one of the things that change, one of the things that it emphasizes, or three things it emphasizes, and I might mention them all at the same time, is it makes, it says you should have a marine safety management plan that lasts for 3 years, and then it's reported to you in your annual report, etc. So against it, saying what progress are you making against the plan? Currently, you don't have one of these, and what I'm suggesting is that you should. Well, I'm suggesting you ought to have one, but more importantly, I think you could have one for here and for Ventnor as one. So you don't need to have lots of documentation and things. So, and it'd be a very simple document. And again, I can send the team here an example of other ports ones for you to model it against. But it's no big deal. But it does. For you can monitor. You know, this is what we said we were going to do. Are we actually achieving it? So that's what it's about. I think, again, about the Port Marine Safety Code, the other changes that are interesting is that they're talking. I'll tell you what it says to start with, then I'll make a comment. What they're talking about is that that facilities within a statutory harbour authority should have safety management systems as well. So in other words, a good example here, Odessa Marina should have a safety management system that abuts into yours. Now, for you, would be an awkward problem. If you take the Port of London Authority, it means they have about 180 to 200 facilities. So it does seem to be an unmanageable request or extremely difficult request without resourcing it heavily. Nobody is sure who's responsible for this or anything else. There is a meeting that we're all going to, is in mid-April in Edinburgh, where we've got the chief executive and the head of the safety branch of the MCA, where we're going to try and sort this out and find out what it actually means. And then I'll be able to rain it down to you and some of the other reports see how this and what we've got to do to then facilitate it. I think the other one is, it might be interesting to municipal ports, is there has been a relaxation or a change in who could be the duty holder. So you might look at that. For I think I've read it again. I want to ask questions at the meeting we're going to up in Scotland to see if I'm reading it correctly, because it might mean for a municipal port, the responsibility might be able to go to council officers rather than elected members, but I'm not sure. So please don't quote me yet about that, but I can see reading it now, because you here have quite a good, a good understanding of who does what to whom, why meetings happen, and you take charge of it. Other municipal ports struggle with this a lot. and it'd be interesting to see whether that's what was meant in this. Again, this has all been brought out with very little consultation. So that's why I'm not being vague. Well, I am being vague, but I'm not vague myself. I just can't find out. And I'm the same as everybody else. And the third thing that in the code is that about now we should be writing, or should have written during March, saying we comply, or don't, the 3-yearly compliance exercise, where you say my port complies with the Port Marine Safety Code, and we do that every 3 years. And it's called for by the Marine Coast Guard agents by a thing called an MGN once a year, or once every 3 years. That message has never gone out. Again, there's a new Port Marine Safety Code, so we don't know which one we're supposed to be complying to. And so that doesn't appear to have been, it's been postponed to the, but again, we don't know when it's been postponed to, or which code it's going to be related to. Anyway, we are not being naughty. We just haven't been told to do it, and we haven't done it. If we were, you'll see what I'm going to say in here a little bit later on. So I'm sorry, that section there's covering that and a sort of update of some of the Port Marine Safety Code, how it's changing and how it might relate to us and what we're going to have to do about it. But again, I can't really help you other than my own opinions, which is, but we won't have the recording on that. On the website, your port, your harbours, your marine part of the website is still on your overall council one. It hasn't been moved, as I suggested it might be, and it remains awkward to find, I think is the politest way to put it. So I really would suggest that's a nice idea. There's a couple of things here about the navigation risk assessments and things like that. When I last did the audit, we found that the computer system that you use had not been used correctly, and it had sort of got itself into disarray. We have one of our consultants, or principal consultants, has sorted it out for you now, and that is now fixed. So with that, we've put that right for you. It shouldn't have needed to do, but now it's all set up and running properly again now. And I'll come to more then. What you do have, which I think again I've advised but hasn't happened, is that you have a risk assessment on your website, which is way out of date and is not correct. It should. My suggestion is, as I've said here, it should be taken off, and you just say on your website is the navigation risk assessment is available on request. And then you can give, and then what you can do then is literally print off your up-to-date navigation risk assessment straight from your HASMAN system. So they would get the absolute up-to-date one if they needed it. People like to, and a very good example of that would be if you're doing works licensing and needing them to do navigation risk assessments, things for it. So those sorts of requests. But what I advise, don't publish it on the website anyway. Just say it's there for request, and then you can then judge whether it's it should or should not be released. Normally, there's no reason whether it should be. Yes, I'm just reading the last one. I can't remember exactly what that was. You also have a risk assessment for all your land-based risks. These are things like slips and trips and people falling off the edge of the jetty and those sorts of things. When I looked at it last time, it hadn't been reviewed for a long time. And again, I don't think it's been even yet reviewed now 6 or 7 months later. So a lot of these actions here haven't been taken forward. Over the page, the new navigation, your new safety management system is in place, and it works. And it's working okay. And the next one is the incidents are still recorded on a paper system, rather than you've got a computer system that can do it for you, but you're still choosing to do it on paper. Nothing wrong with that, but it's you've got a better system. Oh, sorry, you've got an alternative system, but it isn't against the rules or anything like that. The the marine safety management system for Newport is everything is in it, but you have to have a slightly warped mind to be able to find your way through it. So what I'm suggesting here is that when the next review comes is we can actually make it flow better. And finally, the one thing we're going to talk about Ventnor in a minute, that has already been achieved for the new Ventnor one. So it is matter of more indexing and things like that than rewriting. It's an indexing thing, but currently it is not easy to do. Again, the exercise program you have is done. It's done currently on a bit of an ad hoc basis, and there's not much forward planning. Though there's an oil spill exercise planned for this coming November with Adler Allen, your tier 2 provider, doing one. But what I'm really trying to do is get these fixed into the diary, and then we look at manpower availability, and everybody takes advantage of, and maybe some of you popping down to watch as well, because they are important things. Because it doesn't matter if people drown in the harbour anything like as much as an oil spill. It seems, I don't know why, but I do know why. Oil spills grab attention tremendously. So you having seen one, I think should be assured that we can put booms around oil, things like that as well. It is so funny how these what takes the higher priority. Again, the duty harbour masters, these are the guys that are there doing the day-to-day job now. There's one of those, again, is out of date for training. And again, that one hasn't been put right still. And again, these are been long-standing things. And lastly is how your safety management system, how this actually tells people how to do incident investigations. When you're a very small harbour like this, having a drill for how to deal with it is really very important, because they happen so rarely. People haven't done it before, so it's very nice to find a step-by-step, do this, do that, do the other. And again, it is better in the Ventnor one now as well. So rather disappointingly, quite a lot of the things that were in the report haven't been taken forward. It's almost as if the report went in and it was filed, and quite a lot of the actions weren't taken forward or put in. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. So that's that, but taking all that slightly sort of medium to negative report, as I say here, and I still stand by this, that you comply with the code now. So we could definitely, where we haven't to do the compliance exercise that was due now, we could have quite happily have said yes, we comply, but there's quite a lot of things that could make it better. So I think that's there's tons of room for improvement, but we are definitely on the right side of the line saying, do we or don't we comply? Where, of course, you will remember that there were times when we weren't like that. Some of it, of course, is due, a lot of this is due to just basically resource issues, which I think you'll be aware of people and how much time this takes versus pumping out boats that are sinking and all the other stuff that your operational staff are doing all the time, which is common to many municipal ports, which I see a lot of. So that's the Newport one. Are there any questions on that one? So maybe I should.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foster. I just want a few quick comments. I do agree with you about the training. I think it may be about 5 years since you trained me. It feels like that sort of length of time. And I'm wondering if the training should be extended to all members of the board.
With pleasure. As far as I'm concerned, I'd be more than willing. Much nicer to have a bigger audience, quite frankly.
Yeah. And in particular, because you're talking about this is very strange about this meeting in Edinburgh and the fact that so many things are unclear to you. I think we need to wait until after that, and you can give us an update on what is.
I would agree. I agree with the entire
PMSC.
I think we're all at a bit of a loss.
Yes.
Quite what I know what the new code says. I know what I said pompous, but I'm aware of all the changes. How to what degree and how much and how we implement them is still a bit of a grey area, to be honest with you. We've had a couple of meetings internally. We're rewriting our audit system around the new code. But what we don't quite know is some of the questions, like how do we address facilities? How do we address duty holder things? So we, as I say, we've already started the process of revamping this, because this is a very good aid de memoir to do for doing audits. But we again we aren't stuck. We've got a lot of it ready, but there's some areas where we're not quite sure how we should approach it and how we should, because remember, I'm here as your DP and advisor. I'm not just marking you out of 10 and saying, sort that out. What I hope to be able to do is say, this is what it says. I think this is what we ought to do about it, and give a hand. You know, it doesn't matter whether you or some of our very big ports that we look after, you know, they look to us to advise, and sometimes they have been to meetings that I haven't been to, and they tell me what they've heard less. So I do get an awful lot of backwards and forwards from our other clients as well. So my what's the word I want? Involvement in the Newport Marine Safety Code. Some of it's been us, and some of our clients are also have been involved in me talking to the MCA as well. So what I'm getting is about is what I want to, is I hope is the digest of everything that we're hearing. So we're all hoping that we get something out of our the Harbour Masters Association conference in Scotland, in Edinburgh.
And there's also the question of adapting the national legislation to our particularly peculiar small ports. I mean, it's you know, how we deal with it, I think, is
That's
really special, and we need your advice on that.
Yeah.
Can I just carry on a couple of other things? Well, you've been talking about, I think the website is something that's very important, that could be very helpful to have that maybe also advertised outside of the Isle of Wight Council site, so that it's more easily available. And in terms of all the other points, I mean, I'd like to see all your, all these points you've raised being addressed. I appreciate there are resource difficulties, but it seems that these are all technically possible things that we should be able to do, and I would like to see them. You know, I must say the progress since you've been involved has been fantastic, and I think it's a great deal. Your influence has been very helpful in terms of highlighting all these issues for this committee.
So try to switch this all the time. I think two things. Take the website first. There is most harbours have their own little individual website, which is standalone, and I understand that Ventnor is actually starting its own anyway. And in days of old, when a yachtsman was going into harbour, he'd say, well, I'm going to pop into Newport, and he would go to Reed's Nautical Almanac and read it up. He'd look at its chart and approach it like that. Nowadays, and this is true of big ships as well, the first place they go to is the port's website and read what the regulations say, etc., etc. So people aren't that sort of, you know, they don't read into the Reed's Nautical Almanac, whichever one it happens to be, quite like they used to. So having an easily acceptable, easily findable, I'm trying to find a better word, accessible one is, because yours is, it exists, but it is lost within waste management and all the other things within your own, you know, very complex, well, as all councils, very large website. So it wouldn't, if I was a yachtsman and didn't do this job, I would no idea would I think about looking into the council's website. But again, it's a cost to do, and then it's got to be maintained. So I think, and I really, you know, for you here in councils, money is short. I'm very aware of that. So I think that would be my advice. The thing about small ports is, and how the new code is going to go. I always feel that they give this. I think the new code says, and should be proportionate to the size of port, which I think is a very unfair thing to say to small ports, because and I'm not trying to be rude now, they're the very last people who have the knowledge to know, should I be doing this or not, without a bit of guidance. And that's what we try, William Pepys and I try and do all the time, is to give this idea of proportionate, because clearly you don't want a system that's similar to Harwich Haven Authority.
Just an example, the fact we don't have pilotage. I mean, I would surely need a website to tell me, well, obviously you can follow signs, obviously, but you know, it's useful to have a website for things like How do I get to Newport?
Yeah, yes, I mean, you, don't confuse pilotage and a recreational harbour. Pilotage only applies to vessels over 40 metres in length in a commercial, yeah. So by the Pilotage Act. No, 20, I beg your pardon, my mistake, 20 metres or more, but it's not really appropriate here. And pilotage is a landmine that we're trying to avoid here by doing things like commercial ship permits that we've introduced, because otherwise things like the Blade Runner, we have this small area where the Cowes Pilotage Authority area finishes and where the Blade Runner berth is, which is 200, 300 yards into your own harbour area. And we've discussed this before. And what we've put in is we introduced a fix which basically looks at we find out, and we've just finished the exercise last week, I think it was. We finished the exercise of ensuring that the Blade Runner crews comply, but and we do it on an annual basis. We don't. We've looked at the idea of you having to have introduce some sort of pilotage system for 100 or 200 yards is something we don't. We have got to. Something we've got to avoid. And there are all sorts of ways that I've come up with a couple of ideas if it was ever to become a problem, and hope and the most of our ideas surrounding asking cows to extend their pilotage area into the, but there are legal things there which however we do it would be awkward, so we really want to stick with the system we've got. So we would say in our website, current pilotage is not provided. Like Chichester Harbour, Chichester Harbour, for example, is a competent harbour authority, i.e. a harbour authority, which can apply pilotage, but they then say that we do not provide pilotage. But we don't even want to become a competent harbour authority if we can help it.
Okay, I'm finished on Newport.
Right. Shifting target left, as they say.
Just
in the
before we
Navy.
do, David,
Sorry.
just before we do.
Yep.
Andrew, have you got?
I was going to sort of come to that at the end of both, just in terms of how do we translate this into work plans. So that's probably more for once we've heard from Mr. Foster, moving on to our officers and what they have to say and the kind of response and assurance they can give us.
And is there anything you want to add, Jonathan or Alex, at this stage? There are some recommendations here, some action recommendations. It's something we can discuss and address. The other thing, just a housekeeping, and you explain why, David, that the executive summary refers, it is slightly delayed or retarded. Retarded, that's French. Retard. Late, sorry, not retarded in the English sense, retarded in a French sense. It refers to December 2023. Just for housekeeping, can we make sure that any reference in the minutes to the executive summary or this report doesn't relate to that, because it's saying it's recommended a new marine safety plan is drafted for approval in December 23. That obviously has to be a future date now. Can we just have the housekeeping done on that? The website. I mean, is it possible, Alex? Lawrence?
I think the old Isle of Wight Council website was easily maintained by us as officers. The new site was accurate when they copied it across, but we haven't got the access to go in and edit it. We have to put requests in, but again, it's probably down to time. We probably need a whole project to put our own website in place for Newport Harbour. And then it sits completely separately. As David was saying, it would be nice and easy to navigate to it to pick up the information. But we obviously would need some resources to be able to maintain and set that up when we do it. So yes, it's on the list of things to do.
Thanks, Lawrence. Yeah, John.
Is it something that the users group could possibly help with? The harbour users group, could they be possibly involved with gathering information for?
The information just needs to be put in an acceptable format, and yeah, it's just the doing of it. And there's only myself and Jonathan really that do anything with the harbour. So it's a case of prioritising the things that we're going to do and also the expertise that we've got to be able to do it as well. But it is on the list to do.
Thanks, Lawrence. And then, well, all the others are actions, so we can either deal with them or not deal with them, or talk about them or not talk about them as you see fit. But we obviously like to see some of the actions as part of a forward work plan, as Andrew was talking about. Thank you, David.
My red button. Right, moving on to Ventnor. Now, I think remember a lot has happened since this report has came in. So what I said at the beginning of is it does not comply. And when I wrote the report, it seriously did not comply. It wasn't a marginal. It was way, it was way off. And we talked about and these 5 subjects we put down here. There was no navigation risk assessment. There is now an up-to-date risk assessment that was completed and is in post and is on your electronic system as well. So that is an action completely done. And usually I got my hands dirty and did it with one of our scientists, and we got it was rather fun doing that. Except the weather was appalling. But we actually watched a vote going in a force 9 gale, which I think we actually saw the risk in action looking down at it. So it was a very interesting little trip now. There is the safety management system. It is now the fully drafted safety management system ready basically to have approved. It is finally being checked by Ventnor itself. We'll come back to them in a minute. And then that's ready to rock and roll as well. So that's another second one that can be ticked off hopefully within the next week or so. There's no port emergency plan. There is now a very small. It's only a tiny port. It's like a very small marina. So we've got back to this business of proportionality. It's not much bigger than in here. Well, I mean, but you know what I mean. So again, there's the port emergency plan there. Basically, who to ring if things go wrong type of plan. That's again has been drafted and is again ready to go live. Again, waiting for the management people to agree with them. Again, there was no port waste management plan. Every port's meant to have these waste management plans. It's all part of the sort of making harbours more environmentally acceptable, and that has been drafted and it's ready to go, but it hasn't yet been approved by the MCA. But that again is, again very close to completion. So that's the last one. And the harbour has never been surveyed, which I did find extraordinary. When they finished doing it, as far as we could find, with all the drawings, we couldn't find an end of construction marine survey ever been done for it, which was, I don't know, I mean, this way before all of us were involved with it. Well, I think it's where we're all involved with it. But that has been, the purchase order is out for that, and it'll be done in April, and looking for a high tide when the weather is acceptable at the same time. So that's booked and ready to go. So those big ticket items we've made some very significant progress have been made on those, and they've all come sort of ready to go in the last week or so. So again, that's all good news there. Going through the smaller items here, talking about the powers. Funnily enough, Ventnor has an excellent local legislation. It gives you all sorts of powers which so far you don't need, but you've got them up your pocket. Not like here, if you remember, we wanted to get the powers of general direction. The first thing we had to do was have a harbour revision order and went through all those stages. There, it's all in the Act as it stands. So if we wanted to introduce these things, we have the powers to do it straight away, which is, which somebody, our predecessors did a very good job there to getting that, giving us that to go. The management was handed over, I think it was almost a year ago now, to what was it called, the Ventnor Haven Management Company there, or Limited there, and that's been running for a year or so now. And basically, one of the local fishermen there provides day-to-day sort of harbour master type of services down there, and that's been running for a year. we went to speak to them, and it seems to be going rather well, to be honest with you. And that's, I think that's going on. They haven't had the safety management system and things in place, been running on a draft one, but I think that one, hopefully, those boxes are all going to be ticked off in the next couple of weeks. The thing about duty holder training, because you remain the duty holders for there as well as to here. Again, the point here I'm making is it's the same training thing, so don't think I've done anything different there. We have provided duty holder training to Mr. Blake, who does the work down there. So we have given him training 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So I've done that. We recommended a harbour user group for Ventnor be started. In your new management system, the who should be on it, everything has been identified, but it hasn't actually taken place yet. We have, though, when Stephanie, Stephanie, the lady who I work with most of the time, and I did the navigation risk assessment, we had probably the same people who would you have a harbour user group, or most of them, and they were very helpful and enthusiastic. So I think it's ready to go. Your management system has it already. It just needs someone to pull the handle and get on with it. And I don't know where that's led from here, from the council officers, or it's led by the management company. And I don't know where that lies, but it's ready to go. Again, the safety management plan, which we talked about before, this is having your aspirations of what you want to do in safety, and then have it done. And agreed, when I wrote this, of course, it was in 2023, and we've put on into 24. Again, the website, what we've talked about before, and you've just talked about, and Ventnor, I think, is thinking of starting its own, and maybe it'd be better to get them both together. But anyway, that's internal products and, quite frankly, a resource issue for you. But they are starting their own, or I think they're starting their own. The navigation risk assessment is completely completed and accepted here and by the management company, and is on your HASMAN system now. The safety management, again, the safety management, as I mentioned, is drafted and ready to go. And the emergency plan is done, coming down there. So many of these are repeats from there. And the waste management plan. But I think it's the MCA approval we've got to get. Though you've had your other one done for Newport Road very recently, and that went fine. I think there's a couple of, I think, got to get some bins and things before you ask them round. But I would be very surprised if that causes a problem. And the survey again is booked and ready to go. Training, about the training and who should do what within the management company, that already in the new safety management system, that's already laid out for the company to fill in. And again, the recommendations of the new system should have how to carry out investigations and things, and that again is actually similar to what you got for Newport, but slightly improved. So again, maybe what we could suck back into the next edition of your own, but not your own, the Newport one. So I think to say is that maybe there are lots of things in here that have been not done, but the concentration has been upon trying to get Ventnor into the fold properly, and we're just now beginning to see the all those actions all sort of coming then for they get well planned there was for Ventnor. So there's suddenly been a sort of getting a whole lot moved at the same time. So that's the Ventnor report. It wasn't very good at the time, but now talking to you a few months later, we've got a lot ticked off. So are there any questions on that?
Thanks, David.
I think you've answered my questions that were already here, actually, but what you've done, it seems to be made actually very good progress.
Sure. Thank you. Nothing. Ed, Alex, Jonathan, Lawrence. I guess the question is where there's still ongoing progress and some of the recommendations for Newport as well. How are we going to capture that and move that forward, including the website actually?
Off of David's report that he submitted back in November sort of time last year, we got a get well plan for Ventnor, which was included in the documentation there. And we've highlighted all the issues that we need to action. And the one that you've got is out of date now because that was sent 3 or 4 weeks ago. Jonathan's been working quite hard on it the last month or so, and we've got an updated version of that now where a lot of it is ticked off, but there are still some outstanding ones that need action. And the website is on our sort of list as well.
Thanks, Lawrence. I do somehow, I don't want to, be too onerous, but putting a website up isn't, gift gaff. Yeah, I just wonder, I'm not asking you to do it, by the way, but I just wonder if it is something we could look at. All the data would transfer as my understanding, and it would just be a standalone website. If there's any updating on our existing website, although it's part of the Isle of Wight Council, I mean, that's the same process, whether it's in the Isle of Wight Council or standalone, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, currently it's all internal. I mean, I would say the Ventnor one, we need to be pushing as much out to the current operator as possible. And we just have pointers on any council information to say, for information about Ventnor, here you go. The Newport one, it would be nice to have our own standalone website. But again, I go back to the fact that there's only me and Jonathan to do it. So it's just a case of us prioritising what we update and what we do.
Thanks, Lawrence. I mean, it's just a worry because that suggests that we're going to struggle to keep our existing website up to date as well.
Haven't got an existing one really. It's a page on iWhite.com. So we haven't got our own website. It's a page on there that's updated. It just looks council-y. So in an ideal world, you would have a nice website.
I had in my mind that you went. It was bolted onto the Isle of Wight Council. It was all singing, all dancing information, exactly along the lines that David suggests that visiting yachtsmen and boat owners might expect to find with the data.
Yeah, when you
that's
Google,
a different situation.
When you Google Newport Harbour, it comes up top, so you can get to it. But it's down to us to make sure that the accurate information is on there, which we haven't done.
It sounds like a resource issue rather than a cost issue because we're going to. Okay. Maybe
Chair, I'm just thinking, it's going back a few years, but the last time I looked, Cowes Harbour Commission had an excellent website, which gives you a tremendous amount of information about all the things you can do in Cowes. Is that something could it be like an adjunct to that in a sense that because people are using Cowes anyway, the harbour? I mean, could it not be something that they could look at, or we could ask them to work on with us?
From memory, they do supply, they do Newport Harbour, and the Folly is mentioned as subsections. The Folly, they give the information for the berthing masters because one of the visitors' pontoons are Cowes' anyway, the other one's ours, so they share the same information. And they do mention that Newport Harbour is there with the contact details. So they have put a bit of information and passed on our contact details. So if you search Cowes, you can get Newports and of course the Folly.
I think that's quite a good idea really, because we'd have to pay for it, but I don't know if there is an option for Newport Cowes to take on ours and we pay to do it.
Lawrence, the next item is going to tell us how much money we've got in the bank, isn't it? So it might impact what we are able to do or not. But can I just thanks for that, by the way. Can I just add? I think you referred to it, Lawrence, for Ventnor. Whilst we hold the duty there, how much of those things that we're being suggested that we are recommended let us do could be undertaken by the lessee, or does the lease not allow for that? Notwithstanding, we remain the duty holder. I accept that.
I think the documentation that we've put together is sort of an operating process for the operator of the harbour. So we felt that we were probably in a position that we had to write that documentation for them. Once we give them that documentation and it's actually all in place, it'll be down to that they operate the harbour. So they'll work to the documentation we give them. So I think the idea of getting a third party to run the harbour, yes, it made a saving, but it's also somebody that is actually managing it correctly. So the procedures we're giving to them in conjunction with them, and they'll use them in their operation. So
that's my recollection of what the committee wanted to see.
Yeah.
It was part of our consideration when we decided to take this that decision to do it this way, that a lot of the responsibility, whilst not removing, a bit like the Highways Authority and the contractor on the highway, it didn't remove the duty of the authority, but that responsibility to deliver that could be delivered. So that's comforting. Thank you for that. Any further questions on this? David, look, thank you so much for this. As always, extensive, interesting. It's helped us to get to where we are, and that's been quite a journey, as Alex reminds me quite often. The fact that the committee was set up in the first place has brought this into a much better place for both these homes. So thank you for your contributions as always. I'll just say before, if you're staying, you're staying. If you need to go, please do. I'll just say just before you leave, it wouldn't be, and I understand your comments, but I think I must get this on record that I think I'll speak for the committee when I say, I hope I do, that we would be more concerned about people drowning in the harbour than oil spilling round there. Just so that's very clear from our perspective. Thank you so much, David. That leads us on to our finance report for, well, both harbours, but Newport first, pages 79 and 80. Alex will do that. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, this is a standard item on the agenda. Each board we have. There isn't a huge amount of change since last time. So if we look at Newport first, this report's been prepared by our finance colleagues, and this report is to the end of January. So we are getting very close to, in terms of the forecast, the expectation for this financial year. Really, I don't think it's going to change too much when we get to the end of year figures. But if you look at Newport and you look at that forecasted figure for the expenditure, it's very, very minor, showing a 2443 overspend on expenditure, and it's then showing a 31,000 uplift on income, which gives a net position as forecasted at the end of the year of around about 30,000. So that's been a similar pattern right throughout this year. So quite encouraging, recovered well from the COVID period. I think probably, unless anybody's got any specific questions, the one thing that probably does stand out for me is when you look down all those income lines, almost all of them are up. There are very few that are down, which I think is testament to Jonathan and his team in terms of managing the harbour to the best of our abilities. And we have had a number of things in the capital programme that have been agreed for next year, which we hope will further generate further income. So I think that's quite encouraging, but more than happy to take questions or move on to Ventnor if you would prefer.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions on this? Sounding okay? Let's move on to Ventnor. Thanks, Alex.
I mean, I'm not really anticipating, because this is a similar pattern and you've asked questions earlier in the year at the other committees anyway. Ventnor, I think, is beginning to sort of we're almost, well, we have had in a full year with the current leaseholder, so the budgets are beginning to sort of settle a little bit in terms of where we were previously. It's not really that much to comment on because a lot of the in-depth expenditure is now covered by the leaseholder. But what you can see is a situation where we are in a good position net, from a net point of view. We're 31,000 pounds in the good compared to the current budget. Some of that money has been put forward as a saving in next year's medium-term financial plan, which was presented to you in February, is largely due to some savings around obviously the seaweed clearance. But as we move forward, I think that budget will become somewhat simpler to look at, because our risk is reduced to a certain degree in terms of income expenditure. It's a risk that the leasee has taken on. There are still some costs attached for us, but not a huge amount, as you can see. It's a very simple budget to look at. But obviously next year, what we might see some slight changes on that, because that budget will be altered and there'll be a saving put forward from this area. But it could be a bit tighter.
Savings in which way, Alex?
I think that was put forward as a saving with Colin's savings proposals
Wasn't
that were
aware.
introduced in February, I believe. I will double check, but that's certainly our understanding, isn't it?
Does that mean taking money out of the harbour's income?
It means taking that net position, yeah.
Okay, are we able to do that?
Well, based on the forecast for this year, it's showing that we would be able to do that, yeah.
Any questions?
Just a quick, there's no income for, we don't receive any kind of fee or any kind of rental from the management company.
Yeah, that is still shown in there under the £12,000 there. That's the cost of the lease of the fisheries, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got a zero at the end, but it's 12,000, is it? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, which then goes to them, doesn't it? Yeah. That's the income from the fishing boats that goes to the leaseholders. And then obviously we are then paying them the management fee. So they take that income.
We don't receive anything in terms of the work.
We used to, we don't now, no.
Happy? Further questions? Nothing else to add? To Alex for that. We'll move on to the report from the Senior Harbour Master for Newport first and then Ventnor after. That's page 83 to 86 in our papers. Jonathan.
Afternoon all. This is from December to February. Due to the weather and everything else, it's been a little bit quiet on visitors and everything else because it's not been the best weather for boating, let's say. We did our oil spill tier 1 spillage exercise in January, which worked very well. Other highlights, we had Trinity House came down and conducted an audit, which they do annually to just double check what we have in place is correct and still current and still good. And that was quite happy with everything we did. Hub staff has started power washing all of the pontoons, which is a fun job. I mean, if you ever want to join us, you're more than welcome. Going through, we had slight damage to one of our safety ladders at the Folly, but we swapped that out. I had a chat with the Medina Mariners Association regarding the slipway, the Folly, and we may need to do just a bit of repair work to the lead of that, but nothing major, but they're quite happy. As one of the harbour buildings is empty at the moment, we've taken the opportunity to lift the harbour launch out. We worked out that since it was put in 84, I think it's the longest time it's been out of the water. Usually it's only 4 days. So, and at the same time, we got it surveyed as part of its small craft license. So as it's out, we're doing a couple of repairs, painting up and actually making it look slightly prettier than it was before. Other than that, we did have one boat in January that sadly sank alongside one of our Folly pontoons. There wasn't a major pollution risk because the fuel tanks were empty, and that was recovered at the owner's cost by Cowes Harbour. using their boat yards. Other than that, it's just been coping with the weather and the rain and and the strong winds. Strangely, it's also the stuff that's coming down the river. You know, one day we ended up finding 10 tyres that had managed to wash down the river due to the tides. The other one is our sort of next project is repairing or renovating a set of our swing moorings at the Folly. We have now got the old floating bridge chain that we were waiting for collection, but obviously we had to wait till they got the new set before we could run off with the old set. But we've now got that all in place, so hopefully that will be happening shortly. Other than that, it's sort of general maintenance and surviving the rain and the wind. But yeah, nothing major. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions, queries? Comment from me. What's quite encouraging is some of the small operational problems that you day to day come across in running and they're dealt with and sorted out. It seems there's no dates on it, but fairly quickly, and that's quite encouraging from our point of view. Looking in that those small things that can be disruptive to operations, but your team and yourselves are getting grips with those small things and putting them right pretty quickly. That's quite encouraging from our perspective. So thank you for that. Yeah, do you want to tell us about Ventnor, please?
So the Ventnor report was compiled from our monthly reports that come from the Ventnor management company. And I meet with him sort of at least monthly, if not twice monthly. And these are the highlights. So visitors numbers are still very low down there. What I forgot to put on was the pumping numbers. So the the seaweed pump was sadly out of commission from sort of mid-November and came back in January. So in October, they were pumping for 178 hours. In November, they only managed 28, but then the pump had to go back under its warranty and it's now fully operational. To give you an idea, in February, it did 145 hours just in February. So it's back and working and doing a great job. Their daily inspections, they've checked everything and they really haven't had anything that exciting go on. They've had obviously the bad wet weather, but all the boats that have been in are commercial fishing fleets. So they're very good at making sure their boats are tied up and they check them regularly. More so than some recreational users that won't go down there in a forced night to check their boats fine. But fishermen, they love going down, playing in the rain, I think. So, yeah, it's been going well. But happy for any questions.
Thank you once again, Jonathan. Any Andrew?
Yeah, so where we're reliant on somebody else saying to us that things are the situation, how do we, and I'm not in any way saying that anything about this could be false, how do we assure ourselves that what is said has been done and what has said has been recorded or not recorded genuinely is so? Do you do a kind of random spot check to just check they are doing the things they say they are doing?
Yeah. So I go down and meet with Ed at least once a month, but we try and do it sort of every 2 weeks. And then at that point we go through it. I'm on the site as well, so we wander around. So if he says he's painted everything pink and I turn up and it's all green, I know that it's not correct. So we do go through things. So yeah, there is a double check and it makes it a lot easier if he puts the major highlights on the monthly reports, but then I can walk around with him and he says, oh yeah, we've got a slightly loose board, but we've done it up. So that's the main reason I go over is to actually translate what he sends in the report to actually what it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And also he gets the opportunity to ask me questions the other way as well.
I think that sounds fine. It is about that assurance though, because it is not unknown for authorities to find that people who say they are doing things and reports to us that they have done things and it turns out they have not done things, or they have changed the record in some way. But that does happen in local government, as it happens elsewhere. But even on something as small as this, it's important that we are assured that what is reported is correct. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Any comments, any further comments? Thank you. Therefore, we'll move on to the Get Well plan. I must say, and you tell me if it's just me, but I can't read that. And it, oh, that's true too, Shay, Andrew. You've got one back. Who's Lawrence? Thank you.
I think we've probably covered most of this earlier. The Get Well plan was written from David's report. And what we try to do on there is highlight all of the actions that we need to undertake to be able to comply with all of the recommendations that have come from David's report. This document was produced 3 or 4 weeks ago, obviously for time constraints of this meeting. We have updated since, and as David has covered off there, a lot of the actions go back to the documentation that we need to finalise. All that documentation now is in final sort of version 1 format. So the majority of it has been actually ticked off on our up-to-date list. I doubt whether you'd want me to go down each individual line with it. I don't know if there's any. Happy to take any questions with any specifics for it. But I think probably most of it was covered off in earlier items.
Thank you, Lawrence. Any questions on this? Seeing as you're the only one that can see it, Andrew.
I just say first of all, I really do like seeing this, and I recall from my previous time on the committee that similar sorts of documents. It helps us keep from our duties, keeping an oversight of how things are tracking through, what is on there, how it is tracking through on that. So, are you assured that you have the capacity to deliver on all of this? Some of those things we've already had a bit of a go round the paddock on the website issue, but generally, do you feel you have the resources necessary, both human and financial, to deliver?
I think so on that, and some of I think Jonathan sort of speaking for him, some of the bits we haven't completed on Newport have really been because we've been trying to concentrate on the Ventnor side of it. I'm pretty comfortable that we can tick off all of those items. The important ones are the marine safety management system, etc. Those documents. We've got some final sign-offs to get off on a couple of them, but yeah, I'm pretty confident that we can get all that finalised.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Reason we've been concentrating on the Ventnor one was because it was so far behind Newport one. So once those drafts have been sort of signed off by Ed and sort of we're happy for them to go live, once that's in force, then Ventnor should be compliant. And then we'll go back to sorting the lesser problems with Newport. But then it does mean that we've got an operational plan for Ventnor.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are you okay, both? I guess my only question is, you know, if there's a surplus income, and if it's sustaining that way or appears to be staying that way, and there was a question about resources, whether it is for this committee to look at resourcing further with that money rather than it being moved somewhere else in the council. That might not mean using it all, but it might mean some additional resource. And I don't know how the members feel, but it strikes me if the harbours are, for example, yeah. Okay. That's the point that's been made, Alex. Take that into account. I appreciate the financial position we're in, but it might be worth looking at a future meeting, not too far in the future, in terms of should we be helping with additional responses? Resources, sorry. Thank you. Any members' questions?
I've got a stupid question, but I think it's kind of useful in a way. It's because I haven't been here for a couple of meetings and things have obviously moved on. And I've had this kind of query before in relation to RIDE. Is where exactly we fit in now with Ventnor? Because I understand how we are responsible for Newport. We've got a management company come in at Ventnor. We're still responsible for as a duty holder. I can see now that we've delegated lots of the practical things, but I was wondering if we could summarise where we are there and what's happened exactly with our relationship with Ride Harbour now, because that's disappeared off the agenda. Have we completely absolved ourselves now of any duty holder responsibilities? Thank you.
Oh, yes, John. Alex will speak to that. And it wasn't the harbour, it was a marina. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, with RIDE, that has, as you know, transferred across to Ryde Town Council. They're doing a very good job of that. Fortunately, that was never a statutory port, so we haven't got the same obligations that we've got with Ventnor. I was going to raise this under AOB, so I'm glad you've raised it, Councillor. But the long-term view of Ventnor Harbour would be that we would investigate the continuation of the statutory port, and that we may, or we hope was to bring back some information on what is involved with closing that harbour. Not, I don't mean closing it in terms of, but closing it as a statutory port. Joseph's on the call. Joseph has been looking at that and seeing what is available to us from a legal point of view and the cost of that work as well. And the hope is that we'll bring back a paper in the future to this committee where we look at the options for closing it as a statutory port. We may decide not to do that, of course, or you may decide not to do that, but we did say we would look at that as an option. If we did close it as statutory port, obviously we wouldn't have to go through the process that we've currently got, but a lot of that is just very good practice. So it may be that we don't decide to do that. A lot of that was, I think, to some extent linked to the opportunity to do something more than a management agreement and to look more at a disposal of the leasehold or freehold of the harbour, which, to be able to do that, my understanding is we would have to close it as a statutory port. Otherwise, we would still be responsible. So we're kind of on a journey, if you like, where we haven't really got all of our soldiers in line on Ventnor. I think RIDE, I think we've concluded that, and it was quite a hard process to go through. A lot of good work was done with Ryde Town Council. I think to some extent, it'd be interesting to go down on record. I think that was an exemplar of how the council works with another town council to do something really well when it transfers over its assets. It took quite a long time to do, and I think we shouldn't underestimate the amount of time that needs to be put into officer time on both sides in transfer and resources. But I think that was quite a success.
Thank you, Alex. I must say, with another hat on, I'll come to you, David. I must say, with another hat on, it wasn't at the behest of Ryde Town Council that it took so long. But what I would say, in terms with my proper hat on here for the Isle of Wight Council, is that there are substantial costs that are incurred with dredging in Ryde Harbour that this authority have. Which word shall I use? Escaped, evaded, placed elsewhere. David.
So, big one. On the close down of Ventnor Harbour, the Marine Act 2013 does now, well, say now, it's quite recent in a way, gives the option and guidance on how to do so. Before that act went through, it was almost impossible to get rid of a statutory harbour authority once it had been put in. That was one of the 4 or 5 points of the act. So it is possible to be done, and there are a couple of law firms that I'm aware of. I'm trying to sound as if I'm advertising, but it can be done, and there are a couple of firms that I know who've successfully done it. And it doesn't revolve a harbour provision order and that sort of thing. There's a closing order. So in other words, it's a path that has been trod. And of course, I think with Ventnor Harbour, it does definitely lie on the cusp of that, for its size.
Thanks, David. That's helpful, and I no doubt will continue to review and research that opportunity for us and come back at an appropriate moment to the committee on that. If there's nothing further, I will close the meeting. It's 11 minutes past 3. Thank you all for your attendance. As always, your help and support, all of our support team and yourselves, and our 2 members that turned up and made this meeting quora. Thank you.
Say thank you for the staff. I think they obviously you should always take credit for all the progress that's been made.